Hare Krishna, we're studying Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya-lila, chapter 10, entitled The Lord's Return to Jagannath Puri, text 1. So this is Madhya-lila Chaitanya Charitamrita, chapter 10, text 1. Jai Jai Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda.
Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda.
Jai Advaita Chandra Jaya Gora Bhakta Vrinda.
Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gora Bhakta Vrinda.
Jai Jai Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda.
Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda.
Jai Advaita Chandra Jai Gora Bhakta Vrinda.
Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gora Bhakta Vrinda.
Jai Jai Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda.
Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda.
Jai Advaita Chandra Jai Gora Bhakta Vrinda.
Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gora Bhakta Vrinda.
Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya-lila, chapter 10, entitled The Lord's Return to Jagannath Puri, text 1. Tam Vande Gorajaladam Svasya Yo Darshanam Ritai Vicheda Vagraha Mlana Bhakta Shasyani Ajivayat Tam Bande Gorajaladam Svasya Yo Darshanam Ritai Vicheda Vagraham Lana Svasya Yo Darshanam Ritai Bhakta Shashyan Ajivayat Tam Bande Gorajaladam Svasya Yo Darshanam Ritai Vicheda Vagraham Lana Bhakta Shashyan Ajivayat Tam Bande Gorajaladam Svasya Yo Darshanam Ritai Vicheda Vagraham Lana Bhakta Shashyan Ajivayat Tam Bande Gorajaladam Svasya Yo Darshanam Ritai Vicheda Vagraham Lana Bhakta Shashyan Ajivayat
Tam Bande
Gorajaladam
Svasya Yo Darshanam Amrita
Svasya Yo Darshanam Ritai
Vicheda Vagraham Lana Bhakta Shashyani Ajivayat.
Hare Krishna. And this is Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya-lila, chapter 10, text 1. Would anyone online like to lead the chanting of the text? Okay, we'll go to the word meanings. Tam, unto him. Vande, I offer my respectful obeisances.
I offer my respectful obeisances.
Gora,
Gora,
Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu,
Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu,
Jaladam,
Jaladam,
Rain Cloud,
Rain Cloud,
Svasya,
Spasya,
of himself,
of himself,
Yah,
Yah,
he who,
he who,
Darshana Amritai,
Darshana Amritai,
by the nectar of the audience,
by the nectar of the audience,
Vicheda,
Vicheda,
because of separation,
because of separation,
Avagraha,
Avagraha,
scarcity of rain,
scarcity of rain,
Mlana,
Mlana,
morose,
morose,
dried up,
dried up,
Bhakta,
Bhakta,
devotees,
devotees,
Sasyani,
Tasyani,
food grains,
food grains,
Ajivayat,
Ajivayat,
saved.
saved.
Translation. I offer my respectful obeisances unto Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who is compared to a cloud that pours water on fields of grain, which are like devotees suffering due to a shortage of rain. Separation from Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is like a drought, but when the Lord returns, his presence is like a nectarian rain that falls on all the grains and saves them from perishing. Hare Krishna. Such poetic metaphor from Krishna Das Kaviraj Goswami. So, there's no particular reason that I'm choosing this verse. I was just in a mood to read from Chaitanya Charitamrita, and mostly we read from Bhagavatam, once in a while Bhagavad Gita in our morning classes and discussions. It's been a while since we read from Chaitanya Charitamrita, probably back February, March, during the time of the appearance days of Lord Chaitanya, Lord Nityananda, and Sri Advaita Prabhu. And also I went to, so then, okay, there's so much in Chaitanya, 62 chapters, it's full, to put it mildly. And I went to, and there's so many philosophical parts, and in our Bhagavatam reading, it's very philosophical prayers by Lord Brahma, so I thought to focus on some pastime. There's philosophy in pastime, and interwoven in the pastime there's so much philosophy, and I don't recall ever reading from this chapter in our programs going back 16 years, so I thought to go there. Okay, so all the Vedas, yeah, I can't help it. I'm going to go to philosophy, of course, but we're hopefully going to visit some pastime too, and I'm intentional we're going to do that. Okay, so all the Vedas, and there's so many processes and so many parts and just so many branches, as Krishna describes in the beginning of the 15th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, so many branches and twigs and leaves of the metaphorical Vedic tree. And all the Vedas are meant to bring one to devotion to Krishna. That's it. All the Jnana Marg and the Karma and the going towards detachment from matter and impersonal realization. Bhagavad Gita, Vedeshta Saveraham Eva Vedya Vedantakrit Vedavid Eva Chaham. So that's 15th chapter, and Krishna says, devotion to, I am the goal of the Vedas, I'm the object of the Vedas. Okay. And so, at the same time, the Vedas can be confusing, especially for like a Kali Yuga type of brain. And so Krishna appeared. It's described in the Bhagavatam. Krishna Varnam Trisha Krishnam Sango Pangastra Parshadam Yevgi Sankirtana Praya Yajanti Sume Dasa. That's one amongst many verses in the Bhagavatam from thousands of years ago that predicts Krishna's appearance of Lord Chaitanya. That Krishna will appear and start the Sankirtan movement in the Kali Yuga. And so Krishna's appearing is actually Sri Krishna Chaitanya and Radha Krishna Nahayanya. Krishna is a combined, Lord Chaitanya is a combined form of Radha and Krishna. And it's Krishna appearing saying, okay, because the goal of all the Vedas is devotional service to me. So here's how to do it. Here's how to do it. And so Lord Chaitanya is Krishna in the form of a devotee of Krishna. I'm going to read the summary of this chapter It's entitled The Lord's Return to Jagannath Puri. So again, in that first verse, I'll read it again. I offer my respectful obeisances unto Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who is compared to a cloud that pours water on fields of grain, which are like devotees suffering due to a shortage of rain. Reminiscent of the first stanza of the Gaurvastakam that we sing in the morning. Samsara dava nalalita loka trinaya karunya vinaganatvam bhaptasya kalyana gunarnavasya vande guru shri charanarvindam. The analogy is slightly different. That talks about how the spiritual master, the representative of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, is like a rain cloud that extinguishes the blazing fire of material existence. And Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, he's the revealer. We can say author, though we don't mean author in a mundane sense. Author and call it transpersonal authorship. He's revealing the Chaitanya Charitamrita. He goes on to say, separation from Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is like a drought, but when the Lord returns, his presence is like a nectarian rain that falls on all the grains and saves them from perishing. So the context here, so Lord Chaitanya, back in chapter 6, he appears and he walks from Navadvip, takes sannyas, and he arrives in Jagannath Puri, has pastimes with Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, and then pretty quickly he wants to tour. So he tours South India, and then there's amazing pastimes in South India with Srila Ramananda Roy. That's chapter 8 of the Madhya-lila, very intensely devotional, philosophical chapter, and he's visiting all different special places and inspiring everyone to chant Hare Krishna. Okay, and now he's on his way back, and so we're into the emotion at Jagannath Puri, and they're just like dying from painful separation because Lord Chaitanya has been gone for, I guess, years, but then he's coming back now. So that's so it's like we've been drying up, and now this is like a rain cloud. Now, of course, this devotional separation, in that pain of separation, there is spiritual joy. Okay, so that's spiritual separation is even more relishable than meeting. That gets into some esoteric aspects of bhakti. So I'm going to read the chapter is like many chapters in Chaitanya Charitamrita. It's relatively long, 190 texts. We're not going to read them all, but we'll read a few. So I'm going to start with the summary. While Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was traveling in South India, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya had many talks with King Prataparudra. When Maharaj Prataparudra requested the Bhattacharya to arrange an interview with the Lord, Bhattacharya assured him that he would try to do so as soon as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu returned from South India. When the Lord returned to Jagannath Puri from his South Indian tour, he lived at the home of Kashi Mishra. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya introduced many Vaishnavas to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu after his return. The father of Ramananda Roy, Bhavananda Roy, offered another son named Vaninath Patanayaka for the Lord's service. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu informed his associates about the pollution of Krishnadas brought about by his association with the Bhattaharis, and thus the Lord proposed to give him leave. Nityananda Prabhu sent Krishnadas to Bengal to inform the Navadvip devotees about the Lord's return to Jagannath Puri. Okay, some context. So the devotees in Jagannath Puri, they didn't want Lord Chaitanya to go to South India, and so even they would do different trickery to get him to stay. Okay, so eventually but then he was going to walk on his own. But no, you should take at least one assistant. So he said, okay. So they gave him an assistant named Krishnadas, in full name. Yes, I think it's Kala Krishnadas. Anyhow, so in the course of the tour, at one point, Krishnadas, he got enticed by gypsy women. Okay.
And that's who they chose? Somebody that was that
What's that?
They chose somebody they could get enticed by.
Yeah, he got enticed by gypsy women.
Yes.
It's all transcendental pastime, but this is true. No, he got all entangled with gypsy women. So Lord Chaitanya, oh, he's supposed to support me now. Anyhow, so it's a whole thing. It's quite an adventurous pastime. Spicy, definitely very spicy. And so, as Lord Chaitanya, he kind of disentangles him from the gypsies. But now he's saying, like, yeah, I mean, with all due respect, you gave me an assistant to support me, but then I'm dealing with all this drama. Okay, so that's just part of the context. Hare Krishna, Chaitanya Charitamrita. All right, I'll continue with the summary. All the devotees of Navadvip thus began arranging to come to Jagannath Puri. At this time, Paramananda Puri was at Navadvip, and immediately upon hearing news of the Lord's return, he started for Jagannath Puri, accompanied by a Brahmin named Kamalakanta. Purushottama Bhattacharya, a resident of Navadvip, was educated at Varanasi. He accepted the renounced order from Chaitanyananda, but he himself took the name of Svarup. Thus he arrived at the lotus feet of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. After the demise of Sri Ishvarapuri, his disciple Govinda, following his instructions, went to see Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Due to his relationship with Keshava Bharati, Brahmananda Bharati was also respectfully received by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. When he arrived at Jagannath Puri, he was advised to give up the deerskin clothing he wore. When Brahmananda understood Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu correctly, he accepted him as Krishna himself. However, when Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya addressed Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as Krishna, the Lord immediately protested. In the meantime, Kashishvara Goswami also came to see Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. In this chapter, devotees from many different areas come to see Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and they are exactly like many rivers that come from many places to finally flow into the sea. Hare Krishna. One reason I chose this chapter, and again, I don't know how far we'll get, but one reason I chose this chapter is it's saturated and immersed in the nectarian emotions, the nectarian currents of emotions. We can say rasamrita, the nectarian emotions of between the devotees and the exchanges between the special rasas, the special relationships between Lord Chaitanya and his very dear followers, and between the followers themselves. So it's Chaitanya Charitamrita is filled with such descriptions of just heartfelt exchanges between sincere souls. So that's one reason I chose it. Vande Shri Krishna Chaitanya Nityananda Sahodidal Gododaya Pushpan Vadal Chit Vande Shri Krishna Chaitanya Nityananda Sahodidal Gododaya Pushpan Vadal Chitra Sandal Tamonodal. I offer my respectful obeisances unto Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda, who are just like the sun and the moon. They have arisen simultaneously on the horizon of God to dissipate the darkness of ignorance in this age of Kali and to wonderfully bestow benediction upon all. So such verses can impress upon us. This is all about transformation. There's no dry rituals, all about transforming from the darkness to the light, transforming the heart, and towards realizing metamorphosizing to our realizing our core identity. Vande Guru Nisha Bhaktan Ishan Isha Vatarakan Tat Prakashams Chatat Shakti Krishna Chaitanya Samgyakam Panchatatvatmakam Krishnam Bhakta Upasupakam Bhakta Vatam Bhakta Gyam Namami Bhakta Shaktikam Jayatam Suritau Pangura Mamamanda Mater Gati Matsarasva Padam Bujal Radha Madana Mohanal. Glory to the all-merciful Radha and Madhan Mohan. I am lame and ill-advised, yet they are my directors, and their lotus feet are everything to me. These are supplications by Krishna's Kaviraj Goswami. Divyad Vrindaranya Kapajumada Srimad Ratnagara Singasana style Srimad Srila Govinda Deva Pristalibi Sevyamane Smarami. In a temple of jewels beneath a desire tree in Vrindavan, Sri Sri Radha and Govinda, served by their most confidential associates, sit upon an effulgent throne. I offer them my respectful obeisances. Srimad Rasa Rasamrambi Vamsivata Tatastita Karshan Venu Staner Gopir Gopinata Shriyestita Shriyestuna. Sri Srila Gopinath, who is the inaugurator of the transcendental mellow of the Rasa dance, stands upon the shore at Vamsivat and attracts all the cowherd damsels of Raja with the sound of his celebrated flute. May they all confer upon us their benediction. Radha Krishna Pranaya Vikriti Ladini Shaktir Asmad Ekatmanav Api Bhuvi Pura Deha Bedam Gatau Tau Chiktanakyam Prakata Aduna Tatvayam Chaikyam Aptam Radha Bhava Duti Suvalitam Normi Krishna Svarupam. The loving transcendental pastimes of Sri Sri Radha and Krishna are transcendental manifestations of the Lord's internal pleasure-giving potency. Sri Radha and Krishna are one, yet these two transcendental personalities separated themselves internally, eternally. Now they have again united in the form of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who has accepted the complexion and sentiment of Srimati Radharani, although he is Krishna himself. Om Anganatim Mirandasya Gnanjana Shalakaya Chakshuran Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Svayamupa Kadamayam Dadati Svapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Uta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Saganaraganat Panditam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitan Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitamscha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gorange Radhe Vrindavaneshware Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpati Yubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bhyevacha Patitanan Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gora Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Sarasvati Deve Gauravani Pacharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desha Tarine. Hare Krishna. Text 2 of chapter 10 of Madhya-lila, Chaitanya Charitamrita. We're familiar with this verse. Text 2 is Jai Jai Shri Chaitanya Jai Nityananda Jai Advaita Chandra Jai Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. All glories to Lord Chaitanya, all glories to Nityananda, all glories to Advaita Chandra, and all glories to all the devotees of Lord Chaitanya. In many of the chapters, Krishna's Kaviraj Goswami includes such verses towards the beginning. Purveya Ve Mahaprabhu Chalila Dakshine Prataparuja Rajatabe Bolela Sarvabhome. When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu departed for South India, King Prataparudra called Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya to his palace. Vasiteya Sanadila Kari Namaskare Mahaprabhura Vartatabe Puchila Tanhare. When Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya met with the king offered him a seat with all respects and inquired about news of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Shunilana Tomara Gare Ekamahashai Godaha Ite Oilateno Maha Kripamoy. The king said to the Bhattacharya, I have heard that one great personality has come from Bengal and is staying at your home. I have also heard that he is very, very merciful. I have also heard that this great personality has shown you great favor. At any rate, this is what I hear from many different people. Now, being merciful upon me, you should do me the favor of arranging an interview. Bhattakahe Shunila Sabasatya Hoy Tadra Darshan Tomara Gatana Na Hoy. The Bhattacharya replied, all that you have heard is true, but as far as an interview is concerned, it is very difficult to arrange. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is in the renounced order and is very much detached from worldly affairs. He stays in solitary places, and even in dreams he does not grant interviews to a king. Tatapi prakare toma karai tama darashan samprati karile tenho dakshina gamana. Still, I would have tried to arrange your interview, but he has recently left to tour South India. The king asked, why has he left Jagannath Puri? Bhattacharya replied, such are the pastimes of a great personality. Great saints go to holy places of pilgrimage in order to purify them. For that reason, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is visiting many tirthas and delivering many, many conditioned souls. Next, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya is quoting a verse from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 13, Text 10. And this is a verse spoken by Maharaj Yudhisthira to Vidura in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Vidura has come back to Hastinapur, and Maharaj Yudhisthira says, Bhavadvita Bhagavatas Tirti Bhutas Svayam Vibho Tirti Kurvanti Tirtani Svantastena Gada Brita. Saints of your caliber are themselves places of pilgrimage. Because of their purity, they are constant companions of the Lord, and therefore they can purify even the places of pilgrimage. So there's the holy dhams, the places of pilgrimage. It's described in the Bhagavatam. Yatirtha Buddhi Kalile. Yatirtha Buddhi Salile Nakarhichich. And that, so, actually the pure devotees, they don't really go to the place of pilgrimage to get purified. They go to purify the places of pilgrimage, because people go to the place of pilgrimage and they kind of cathart and release so many sinful activities there. So Maharaj Yudhisthira and Lord Chaitanya and Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya are saying the pure devotees, of course Lord Chaitanya is a pure devotee, he's actually Krishna himself, they are places of pilgrimage. They are places of pilgrimage. That's why, we certainly honor like Sri Vrindavan Dham and Jagannath Puri and Mayapur Dham. At the same time, our main focus is Srila Prabhupada. That wherever, just like you went to New York and you visited 2nd Avenue, something like that, right? Because Prabhupada went there, so it's on the Lower East Side of New York. It's some neighborhood in New York, in Manhattan. Okay, that's like the most spiritual place in the world. You wouldn't think, right? But because Srila Prabhupada did pastimes there, it's a place of pilgrimage. And you're reading it's Miracle on 2nd Avenue. So you went to 2nd Avenue, now you're reading a wonderful book about Miracle on 2nd Avenue, about the Prabhupada starting the movement in the Western world there. So Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya continues to speak to the king. He's really the king, Maharaj Pratapuja. Vaishnavera ehaya ekasvabhava nischala tenho jivanahena hana svatantra ishvara. A Vaishnav travels to places of pilgrimage to purify them and reclaim fallen conditioned souls. This is one of the duties of a Vaishnava. Actually, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is not a living entity, but the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself. Consequently, he is a fully independent controller, yet in his position as a devotee, he carries out the activities of a devotee. Hello, welcome. You're Matt?
Matt, yes.
Yeah, I'm David.
Pleasure, yes.
Thanks for visiting. Srila Prabhupada's purport. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakur points out that because there are many permanent residents in holy places who do not precisely follow the rules and regulations governing living in a sacred place, exalted devotees have to go to these places to reclaim them. This is the business of a Vaishnava. A Vaishnava is unhappy to see others materially enmeshed. Although Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the worshipable deity of all Vaishnavas, the activities of a Vaishnava were taught by him. Nonetheless, he is the complete and independent Supreme Personality of Godhead. He is Purna Shuddho, Nitya Mukta. He is complete, completely uncontaminated and eternal. He is Sanatana, for he has no beginning or end. So for me, this highlights the compassionate nature of a truly self-realized soul, a pure devotee of the Supreme Person. And so Krishna in different ways, and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and Srila Prabhupada, this purport reminded, Prahlad Maharaj described the devotional heart as paradukkha dukhi, pained at the misery and pain of others. This is true empathy, not in a sentimental sense. So I feel so bad. Not in like a sympathetic, sentimental sense, but truly feeling the pain of others, along with knowledge of how to relieve us, of how to relieve them, how to pull out the very roots of suffering through transformation from false identification with the body to genuine identification as Krishna Rasvarupa Hoy, Krishna Nityadas. Krishna Ratata, Jiva Rasrupa Hai, Krishna Nityadas, Krishna Ratatasta Shakti, Beta Beta Prakash, as eternal servants of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. And so it's described by Amdritiyam Tasya. To whatever degree we misidentify the eternal self that we are with the temporary material body, we will be in anxiety, we will feel insecure, we'll be suffering. And so Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is setting an example here, traveling South India, traveling the holy places to, as the text says, and that, yes, that he's to create this consciousness transformation for everyone he contacts, and then by ripple effect, then everyone who he contacted became a touchstone for such spiritual transformation. Now, this text continues. We're reading from Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya-lila, chapter 10, and we're going to text 14. Rajakahe tanre tumi aite kene dile hayapadi yaknakari kene narakile. Upon hearing this, the king replied, "Why did you allow him to leave? Why didn't you fall at his lotus feet and keep him here?" So Maharaj Prataparuja, he's hearing that this amazing personality was right here in my capital city. And why did you let him leave? He's saying this is his, like, in a sense, it's his main minister, Sarvabhauma Bhatta. Why did you allow him to leave? He's angry at Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. Bhattacharya kahe tenho svayamishvara svatantra sakshat Sri Krishna tenho nahe para tantra. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya replied, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself, and is completely independent. Being Lord Krishna himself, he is not dependent on anyone. Still, I endeavored very hard to keep him here, but because he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead and completely independent, I was not successful. Rajakahe bhatta tumi vigyashiro mani tumi tanre Krishna kahatate satyamani. The king said, Bhattacharya, you are the most learned and experienced person I know. Therefore, when you address Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as Lord Krishna, I accept this as the truth. So Maharaj Prataparuja, he has such trust for Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya in his scholarship, his character, that he's accepting that so Lord Chaitanya is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Okay, so he's trusting, the king is trusting. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada writes, this is the way to advance in spiritual science. One must accept the words of an acharya, a bona fide spiritual master, to clear the path for spiritual advancement. This is the secret of success. However, one's guide must be a spiritual master who is actually an unalloyed devotee, strictly following the instructions of the previous acharya without deviation. Whatever the spiritual master says must be accepted by the disciple. Only then is success certain. This is the Vedic system. So it's described. Kiba Vipra Kibinyasi Sudra Kene Naya Ye Krishna Tattva Veda Se Guru Haya. So Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu confirms that the qualification for a genuine spiritual teacher, spiritual master, is it's not intrinsically dependent on what kind of university degrees do you have, how much money do you have, what kind of family were you born in, what's the gender of the body you're in. It's not dependent on anything external. The defining qualification, Ye Krishna Tattva Veda, that one is fully realized, cognitively and experientially, fully realized in the science of Krishna. Ye Krishna Tattva Veda Se Guru Haya. That's the qualification of a true guru. And a true spiritual master, is simply representing his pure devotee spiritual master on up the line. So Srila Prabhupada's. So we're endeavoring to, that's why we recited several mantras at the beginning of our discourse, our discussion, in a prayerful attitude, that whatever I say, not just here, but throughout the day and the week, and that in my words, my actions, my thoughts, that I'm authentically in an authorized way representing Srila Prabhupada, our current direct living link to the disciplic succession going back to Krishna himself. Srila Prabhupada continues. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was a Brahmin and a realized soul, whereas Prataparuja was a Kshatriya. Kshatriya kings used to obey very faithfully the orders of learned Brahmins and saintly persons, and in this way they would rule their country. Similarly, Vaishyas used to follow the king's orders, and the Shudras used to serve the three higher castes. In this way, the Brahmins, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, and Shudras used to live cooperatively, performing their respective duties. Consequently, society was peaceful and people were able to discharge the duties of Krishna consciousness. Thus they were happy in this life and able to return home back to Godhead. So this, points at like some aspects of, let's call it the Vedic conception of the social system, economic system, political system, because of the idea of, this is very primitive, like a monarchy. It's this despotic autocratic dictator, that sort of thing. And of course, that's what it became as millennia went on. But the idea, it wasn't autocratic, that these Vedic monarchs, Maharaj Parikshit, Maharaj Yudhisthira, Maharaj Prataparuja, they took guidance from the wise sages. They accepted guidance from the wise sages. And there's the example of Maharaj Vena in the fourth canto. He wasn't taking guidance from wise sages, and he was doing all sorts of cruel, harmful, malicious things, and the citizens were suffering. And so the wise sages kind of pleaded with him, like, come on, like you're really messing up here, and you're misusing, you're abusing your responsible position. And then at some point, the wise sages, they got rid of him. Which shows, like there's the Kshatriya, that's like the warrior, tejas, the power of the warrior, right? But more powerful is the Brahminical tejas, the Brahminical power. It's more subtle, and that's the Brahmins, the wise sages. So in Vedic, let's call it social science, like if we look at everything that exists now in the as far as different approaches, theories, and applications of socio-political spheres, it's all there in the Vedas in 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 perfect interplay. So you can say, like communism, there's spiritual communism with self-realization, the Supreme Personality of Godhead in the center, not some mundane government. There's capitalism, the whole Vaishya culture, like Krishna. He was raised in a Vaishya culture. That was the thing. Sometimes Krishna would be criticized because, like, everyone in the Vedic culture, everyone, they need their what's your varna? What's your varna? So Krishna is he's a Vaishya. His Nanda Maharaj taking care of cows. It's trade. It's a Vaishya. But then he's fighting and destroying all sorts of inauspicious armies and like that. And so he has all sorts of battle. Oh, he's a kshatriya. Oh, but then he's driving the chariot of Arjuna. So that's like a Sudra role. So he's a Sudra, but then he's speaking this cosmogonal philosophy. This is very Brahminical, all of these. I mean, so it's just like sometimes people would like, will you figure out like which Varna you're in? And Krishna, of course, and then he was criticized in his time. Because like, you're all mixed up. Like, what Varna are you? And then Krishna clarifies in Bhagavad Gita, Chatur Varnyam Maya Shrishtam Guna Karma Vibhagasha Sanusti Tasyakartam Apimam Vijat Kartaram Avyayam. Krishna says that ultimately one's Varna, and this goes against like in what's become known as the Hindu caste system and like that. One's Varna, one's place, it's determined not by Janma, not by birth. I was born in a family of such and such. No, it's determined by what's one's quality and what's their activity. What's the quality? So whatever family one was born in, but if they actually have the heart of a Brahmin, then they're a Brahmin and they're acting like a Brahmin. If they're acting like a Kshatriya warrior, then they're a warrior, regardless of what family they were born. This is the actual Vedic socio-political system. And yeah, so the Vaishya, that's completely capitalism. It's capitalism with full realization, aligned with kind of if we look at some of the originators of the capitalistic system, like a founding philosophical father of capitalism is Adam Smith. And he's like a founding philosophical father of capitalism. But if we look at his writings, he emphasizes that for the entrepreneurial person, that it's vital that they get that the purpose of all business, make a profit, and there's what's called the invisible hand, make a profit, and the purpose of all business is to support humans to flourish, to support, in the Vedic conception, it's even more than humans, all living entities, the animals and the trees and the plants and the insects, literally, like anyone who has any sort of like controlling power in their household, they're supposed to make sure the plants and the insects nicely taken care of. So not just humans, but even in, let's say, the last few hundred years and what's developed in the name of capitalism, the idea is that the purpose of all business is to support the flourishing and thriving of everyone. And with that as a purpose, in our endeavors to make profit, of course we're not going to exploit and manipulate and create losing situations so I can increase my profit. It's synergistic, at least ideally. Of course, it doesn't play out that way as this era goes on. And then a Brahminical culture, we can say, is anarchy. The Brahminical culture is anarchy. Well, no, but there's laws. The Brahmins are not under the laws. They're above the monarch. They're above the king. They're not under that. Anarchy works fine if everyone in the system is so pure that of course they're not going to act with greed. They're going to act truly. Then they don't need to be under laws. So there's distinctions here. As long as there's material contamination, greed, lust, envy, propensity for deception, and arrogance, and then that's what the laws are for. That's what the regular principles of freedom are for. But like if one is so pure, then naturally they're not going to take more than they need. They'll just take whatever they need to keep on. That's the Brahminical culture. So everything in the socio-political sphere of, let's say, the current day or the current hundreds of years, it's there in perfect, complete form with powerful distinctions in the Vedic age. I think I'll read a few more verses from this chapter 10 of Madhya-lila, and then I'll be glad to hear questions, comments, realizations. Okay. All right. So this is King Prataparuja speaking, and he says, Punarapi ihantanra hoile agaman ekabara dekikari sapala nayan. When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu returns again, I wish to see him just once in order to make my eyes perfect. We're not going to give a whole spoiler, but it's quite it's quite a drama that evokes deep emotion. This how it plays out between Maharaj Prataparuja and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and how Maharaj Prataparuja ultimately does see Lord Chaitanya. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya replied, His Holiness Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu will return very soon. I wish to have a nice place ready for him, a place solitary and peaceful. Lord Chaitanya's residence should be very secluded and also near the temple of Jagannath. Please consider this proposal and give me a nice place for him. Rajakahe Aichakashi Mishwara Bhavan Takarera Nikatahaya Parama Nirjan. The king replied, Kashi Mishra's house is exactly what you require. It is near the temple and is very secluded, calm and quiet. So we see here Maharaj Prataparuja, he's just eager to, because he has so many resources, he's the king, he's eager to use all the resources of the kingdom to support Lord Chaitanya's mission. After saying this, the king became very anxious for the Lord to return. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya then went to Kashi Mishra to convey the king's desire. Kashi Mishra Kaheyami Bada Bhagavan Mora Grihe Prabhupadera Habe Avastan. When Kashi Mishra heard the proposal, he said, I am very fortunate that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the Lord of all Prabhus, will stay at my home. So I'll read this purport, then let's open it up for discussion. Srila Prabhupada writes, this is a purport about Prabhupada, about the term Prabhupada. Prabhupada explains the word Prabhupada, because if we heard in the Bengali, Kashi Mishra Kaheyami Bada Bhagavan More Grihe Prabhupadera Habe Avastan. So this is the term Prabhupada is used in the text itself. In this verse, the word Prabhupada, referring to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, is significant. Regarding this, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Prabhupada comments, quote, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself, Sri Krishna, and all the servants address him as Prabhupada. This means that there are many Prabhus taking shelter under his lotus feet. The pure Vaishnava is addressed as Prabhu, and this address is an etiquette observed between Vaishnavas. When many Prabhus remain under the shelter of the lotus feet of another Prabhu, the address Prabhupada is given. Sri Nityananda Prabhu and Sri Advaita Prabhu are also addressed as Prabhupada. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Sri Advaita Prabhu, and Sri Nityananda Prabhu are all Vishnu taught for the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Vishnu. Therefore, all living entities are under their lotus feet. Lord Vishnu is the eternal Lord of everyone, and the representative of Lord Vishnu is the Lord's confidential servant. Such a person acts as the spiritual master for neophyte Vaishnavas. Therefore, the spiritual master is as respectable as Sri Krishna Chaitanya or Lord Vishnu himself. For this reason, the spiritual master is addressed as Om Vishnupad or Prabhupada. The Acharya, the spiritual master, is generally respected by others as Shripad, and the initiated Vaishnavas are addressed as Prabhu. Prabhu, Prabhupada, and Vishnupad are described in revealed scriptures like Srimad Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita, and Chaitanya Bhagavat. In this regard, these scriptures present evidence accepted by unalloyed devotees. The Prakrita Sahajiyas are not even worthy of being called Vaishnavas. They think that only Kas Goswami should be called Prabhupada. Such ignorant Sahajiyas call themselves Vaishnav Das Anudas, which means the servant of the Vaishnavas. However, they are opposed to addressing a pure Vaishnava as Prabhupada. In other words, they are envious of a bona fide spiritual master who is addressed as Prabhupada, and they commit offenses by considering a bona fide spiritual master an ordinary human being or a member of a certain caste. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur describes such Sahajiyas as most unfortunate. Because of their misconceptions, they fall into a hellish condition. Hare Krishna. So Srila Prabhupada is mentioning the authorized Siddhanta, the authorized conclusion of Chaitanya Charitamrita and the Vedas, and then different deviant understandings as embodied by different sects called Sahajiyas. And this, just as we spoke a few moments ago, the Sahajiyas that Srila Prabhupada is referring to, they're saying, oh, someone is a Brahmin, or someone can be called Prabhupada only if they were born in this family. They just make it materially based, which is completely against the transcendental spiritual philosophy of Krishna and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Srila Prabhupada often quotes the verse, Shruti Smriti Puranadi Pancharacha Vidim Vina Aikantitki Harer Bhakti Utpataye Yaiva Kalpate. It says that even if someone's doing bhakti, but the bhakti is not aligned with an authorized line of teachers, then even that bhakti, it's more of a disturbance than a benefit to the practitioner and to society. Hare Krishna, thanks for giving your hearing power to Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, revealed to us by Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami. I welcome it this time if anyone would like to share any comments or realizations or ask any questions.
Would you read the first verse again, please?
The first verse, okay. Yes, I will. I'll be glad to. So the first verse of this chapter, chapter 10, Madhya-lila. I offer my respectful obeisances unto Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who is compared to a cloud that pours water on fields of grain, which are like devotees suffering due to a shortage of rain. Separation from Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is like a drought, but when the Lord returns, his presence is like a nectarian rain that falls on all the grains and saves them from perishing. Thanks for asking me to do that. Okay, so we have from Bhakti Oasis. Can you please clarify or expand your comment on the entrepreneurial spirit making profit and how it relates to other living entities? Sure. Well, I gave some comments on capitalism as it relates to these verses. Yes, in the Varnashram system, I'm speaking here about the Varna system. Ashram is like one's kind of like place in the spiritual evolution. There's the student life, then there's married life, and then there's retired life, then there's fully renounced life, like that. We're talking here about Yes, about the Varna. And so the Varna system, it's not meant to be some oppressive, like, oh, you're born into that family, so now you have to do that. It's not meant to be oppressive, repressive. It's actually quite a liberating, compassionate, joyful career guidance system that, based on one's psychophysical nature, here's how I can best contribute to society. So, okay, in the Varna, and as far as this, like, how's that apply today? Yeah, yeah, we don't want to artificially take the externals, like some system that applied 5,000 years ago, and just try to transplant it into the 2020s and surely make a mess. At the same time, we can take the essential principles, because they are universal. They are universal. Just like, okay, well, let's see. In in okay, in modern days we have like an engineer. Which Varna is an engineer? I studied engineering for 3 years of university. Yes, and so Mother Malina used to say that she used to comment that the best thing I ever did for the world is to not become an engineer. So there could be truth to that. So but okay, so let's say an engineer who's really into the theoretical concepts and the physics behind materials, and well, that's very Brahminical. Let's say someone's an engineer, they got their degree, and they're, yeah, and their thing is, yeah, well, they want to develop their own thing and increase profit and make millions of dollars, and yeah, and they're good at the engineering, but their main motive is the profit motive. And that's very Vaishya. Let's say someone else is an engineer, but their thing isn't so much the profit in itself. They're glad for the profit, but it's like they want to be the CEO of a big engineering company and manage people. That's Kshatriya mentality. Let's say someone's, oh, I got my engineering degree. I just want to get some job with a company, get my paycheck, and then and that's it. And I'll just do what the boss says. And, okay, so that's very Sudra mentality. So that's why, like, we don't want to just make this pigeonhole box. You're this or you're that. So yeah. So the idea, whether in at least the ideal philosophical conception of modern day capitalism, as enunciated by a philosopher like Adam Smith, who wrote The Wealth of Nations and other literatures, or the Vedic conception of the Vaishya, is, yeah, the profit motive is there, and it's in the container of realization that the purpose of my entrepreneurial ventures is to support and encourage and inspire people to thrive, to transform, and so then, in endeavoring to increase profits, then naturally let's arrange transformational environments, and when they get the product or the service, whatever we're selling, that it's not just like, yeah, I have a profit motive, but then it's win-win, and then they get supported not just in the product or the service, but the whole contact with my business and me and my employees is they get moved to self-realization, and yeah, I make a profit in that. So, like, in that way, it's very complementary and synergistic. Does that respond? Thank you.
Hare Krishna, thank you so much. Yes, Haribol.
Thank you, Bhakti George. Thank you, Jagannath Prabhu and Danishta Prabhu. Hare Krishna. Sylvan.
Hello, everyone. Hello. Anasuya, Lakshmi Priya, and Rosa, and Matt. Hello. So my question Well, I was disturbed by actually your last comment. Your last comment being if one practices bhakti but not following the parampara, then they're causing harm to themselves and everyone else. And that's disturbing. It's like I'm getting this as there's always the next step, making sure that what I'm doing is just not good enough. So I learned Sankirtan and then devotional service and then study of literature. That's bhakti. And now I'm understanding, oh no, actually that's not good enough. You still need to be following this particular parampara and this bona fide um, spiritual teacher, which by the sense of it, there's only one, self-proclaimed. It would appear as well for what I'm. So yeah, I'm actually rather disturbed.
Hi, thanks for sharing, Sylvan. And I hear that comment from me about you can do it's more of a disturbance if we're practicing bhakti, not in the line of a parampara, an authorized disciplic succession. It's disturbing for you, and it gives you the sense, the feeling of like, oh, it's never good enough. Okay, whatever I'm doing, I'm chanting Hare Krishna, chanting japa, reading the books. But it's not enough. You need to be following this particular one disciplic succession. Okay, and then that's irritating, even disheartening, could be discouraging, disturbing, annoying. So thanks for sharing and asking. Okay, so uh, yes, that well, one thing is, as we've discussed, whether it's in these sort of forums or in writing, there's four authorized Vaishnav lines, one through Shiva, one through Lakshmi, one through Kumaras, and one through Lord Brahma, and each line could have many, even hundreds of authorized branches. So there's not just one. Yeah, for sure. As far as one who brought Krishna consciousness around the world, there's one that's prominent, and that's the Brahma Madhava Gaudiya Parampara through Srila Prabhupada. He's just like the most prominent who brought bona fide bhakti yoga around the world. But there's not just one, and Prabhupada emphasizes that. There's the Lakshmi, goddess Lakshmi, through Ramanujacharya. It's called the Sri Sampradaya. It's bona fide. I think they do have branches in the West now and things like that. And not that it matters West or India. So there's not just one at the same time as far as one that's become most prominent to bring bhakti around the world. Yeah, that's through Lord Chaitanya, through Srila Prabhupada, true. And that's what I endeavor to follow. And then when it says, okay, like Prabhupada's referring to the Sahajiyas there, and I made some comment, I made some expansion on that. Because like in different Sahajiya groups, it could be like, yes, okay, so like the goal, bhakti, it's all about serving Radha and Krishna. Serving Radha and Krishna. So some of these Sahajiyas, they would have like, okay, so yeah, so you be my gopi, and you'd have, this is described like in the pastimes of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, some innocent villagers. They would be like one of these Sahajiyas with some charisma or even mystic power, and they would send their wives and daughters to dance with him at night, and engaged in all sorts of mundane activities right? So he was using bhakti basically to exploit innocent women. He was misusing in the name of bhakti, like that, or well, okay. And there was one even in the current line. There was a follower. There was a follower of Srila Prabhupada. Here's one. I'll share. I'm just giving you some examples of what we mean here. Actually, some of you have heard me reference Danavir. He's now Danavir Maharaj. He's based in Kansas City. And he was a mentor for me back in my Israel days and into the 90s. So he said he was with Prabhupada once in the 70s, and Prabhupada said Danavir told me that Prabhupada said, yeah, it's going to come a time pretty soon where they're going to say, to really practice Krishna consciousness, to really do bhakti, you need to take LSD. So Danavir at that time, he was like, look, I mean, no one's going to say that. Prabhupada's exaggerating just to kind of caution us and make an impact. Prabhupada's disappearance was November 14th, 1977. Shortly after that, there was one of Prabhupada's main followers in the leadership position, and Danavir was close with him, and this follower said, to really practice Krishna consciousness, you need to take LSD. And then he thought, yeah, this is the real thing. We have this. So I'm just saying, so these are like major deviations in the name of bhakti, even mixed, because they were taking LSD and chanting Hare Krishna. And in the forest with the young women, there was Krishna and Radha. So it's mixed with bhakti, but it's so distorted and perverted. That's what Prabhupada was referring to. It's so distorted and perverted that there could be some benefit because there's some bhakti there, but then it actually, then people lose trust for the whole system. It got to the point with these sahajas that by the 1700s, 1800s, early 1900s, in respectable Indian society, bhakti, Krishna consciousness, was seen as some dangerous, perverted sex cult, and it just gave the whole thing a bad name. So those are some responses.
Thank you for those responses, and somehow that makes it more digestible. And so I'm wondering why such well, I'll call it confusing language, because now, okay, this chap who said you need to take LSD to really practice bhakti, he was doing it in the name of the parampara, and so now there's a bit of nuance, and you're mentioning those four, which of course you have mentioned to me before. Okay, what if somebody is practicing bhakti by chanting the name of Jesus and doing bhakti in the name of Jesus? How does that work with following a proper line, which doesn't seem to fit with the statement you made, your last statement? So yeah, so it's not so much. I understand now what you're saying. It's the consciousness behind it. It's how am I practicing? Yes, but that's not what the statement is pointing at. To me,
It's not what my statement is pointing at. Yeah.
yes.
Okay. Well, my statement, following on Prabhupada, it's Prabhupada and Chaitanya Charitamrita, they give those statements to guide and protect us that we're continuing to expand and progress in an authorized path and not get deviated by to really practice bhakti, you need to take LSD, sort of thing. Now that's kind of gross deviations, but there are subtle ones too. So Srila Prabhupada, he's guiding us and giving us, he's helping us use our intelligence to protect ourselves. If someone's chanting the name of Jesus, that's completely bhakti. That is completely bhakti, and that's and Krishna's happy, Lord Chaitanya is happy, Srila Prabhupada's delighted, and there's many statements from Srila Prabhupada: chant the name of Jesus, chant the name of any genuine name of God or pure devotee of God. So that's bhakti. That's bhakti, and that you're in the line of Jesus, and great. Now perhaps the challenge is, that perhaps it could be challenging in the modern day to find someone who's like a full 100% pure authorized, authentic representative of the line of Jesus. So much that has gone on in the name of Jesus doesn't represent the actual spirit of his teachings. But if Prabhupada emphasizes so much, chant the name of Jesus. Yeah, you don't need to chant the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. Chant any name of God or God's pure devotee. Yes.
Yeah, and therefore, thank you. And therefore, with your statement, you said if somebody is not doing it in the line, and like with Jesus, one will be challenged to find an authorized line, then they're causing damage to themselves and everyone else. So what I'm getting here is that hardly anyone has found proper real devotion, has found liberation through devotion in any other line, except from the one fortunate person who may have found the line to follow Jesus in an authorized way.
Um, there, there are many. I mean, I've personally encountered followers of Jesus who, I'm personally inspired by them, but it's rare. Yeah, to actually come to pure devotion to God on any line, it's relatively rare, and Krishna emphasizes that. Samahatma Sudurlabha, it's relatively rare. But like I've shared something like reading Saint John of the Cross or Saint Thomas Kempis, Saint Teresa of Avila. My point of view, they're fully pure, realized devotees of God through the line of Jesus, and yeah, to come to full purity is 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 rare. It requires quite some rigorous discipline, rigorous discipline.
And are they authorized, like those names you've mentioned? Is the line authorized, or simply they've followed the teachings and understood it really deeply and have found the light? Which line did they follow? I don't, yeah. Do you see what I mean? It's you're mentioning the line. If it's not following the line, then we're causing damage. But some people have found the light, and the
Okay,
line is not
well,
that clear.
yeah. Well, my understanding is they're in the line of Jesus. He's a pure devotee. My statement causing damage, I'm referring to some real yet egregious egregious examples, and that's what when Prabhupada uses sahajya, he's really cautioning us against sahajya in the name of bhakti. They make it into some different perversions and deviations. So that's what's being referred to there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm clearer there. That it's about the big deviations, not the sincere soul who is trying, who is really working. Yeah. Thank you.
I appreciate the discussion. I see. Parampara Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
I'm walking around the neighborhood chanting, listening. Um, well, it's something Sylvan shared, which doesn't seem like maybe it's the main thing that he shared, but Sylvan, you shared about it's like, here's another thing that I can, like, I'm not doing it good enough. That's what I
Yeah.
heard. And so that's sparked something in me, I can relate to. And it's like where the crossover from, maybe philosophical process becomes, like personal process
Yeah.
where I can, the philosophy or some standards can become another way to like weaponize, to like, I'm not good enough or I'm not still not meeting the standard because there's always like, oh, like I can relate to like kind of how I heard Sylvan share like, oh, you thought that was bhakti. No, that's not bhakti. This is bhakti. There's always another level, another level, another level. And then, but just the other day, we actually read through the part in the Bhagavad Gita, which I'm not going to know exactly where, but I'm just going to paraphrase, that Krishna is speaking to Arjuna and he's going the opposite way. Instead of like, well, here's a higher level, here's the higher level. He starts with like, well, pure just attachment, kind of spontaneous love of God. That's the ideal. And if you can't do that, at least practice the regulative principles of bhakti. And if you can't practice the regulative principles of bhakti, then just give the results of your work. Give donations basically. And then even in the purport, Prabhupada says like, well, even if you can't practice bhakti yoga for some like family pressure, he mentions it like maybe your family thinks it's weird, like that. He's like paraphrasing, he really gives that accommodation. Then just give donation or just even support it. Just be supportive of
Yeah. And at one
of
point,
the of the movement.
Prabhupada and Krishna in that part of chapter 12 Bhagavad Gita, they say, and if you're not able to do that, you're not ready for that, just serve your nation, serve your
Yeah,
community, serve something bigger than yourself.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I just to contrast that with the sort of other side of it, where it's like, okay, just do what you can from where you're at, and
Yeah.
and it just brings up another piece that I've gotten from Malini mostly lately of like just meeting ourselves with humility. It actually relates, rather than resentment or guilt and shame, according to expectations, relationship with our expectations of rather than meeting our, resentful of others, shameful of ourselves, meeting ourselves with humility. And um, it's not about becoming perfect,
Yeah.
but about, it's a relation. There's a perfect person. There's God's the perfect person. It's not that we become perfect. It's that we, serve and surrender to the perfect rather than us trying to become perfect or something like that. So anyway, that's not exactly the main thing that Sylvan was sharing, but it just sparked something for me to share. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Parampara. I appreciate that very much. Aditya sending hearts. Yeah. So I think it's an important distinction. So one thing is like, okay, here's the path, and here's the perfection of the path, and okay, like that. And here's where I'm at. Whatever, the path goes on for millions of miles, and I'm doing 1 inch, and that 1 inch I'm doing really slowly, and sometimes with a grungy attitude. Okay, whatever. But here's the path. See, now that's one, and like meet ourselves where we're at, and encourage, and all that. And that's different than or even like, okay, here's the path, and then here, like 99% of the time, I'm not even on the path, but I know that the path is there, and I can go to it when I choose. Clear, and that's all kind of like healthy, and we get to progress at whatever pace is organic for us. That's different than rationalizing that something that's actually deviant is the path itself. Let's say if somebody, I have all these toxic habits. I won't even mention them, and unhealthy habits. and that's the real bhakti. No, all these other habits, and that's not the path. But when we try to start, but whatever I happen to be doing, that's the real spiritual thing. That's where the danger comes. Yeah, the danger isn't like I'm kind of slow and I'm 0.1% committed, like whatever, maybe next year I'll be 0.2%. Fine. But we're clear what the path is, and not that, let's call it the perfection of the path. We use that, as you said, we use that as like a whip to whip ourselves with guilt and shame. Acceptance, encouragement, celebration of, whatever we're doing. And then the danger is when, in the name of a bhakti path, we make up stuff that's dangerous for ourselves, and then that could also be harmful for others who will follow us. Sylvan writes, thank you, Patrick. Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita ki
Jai.
Srila Prabhupada ki
Jai.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Maybe